Far from Tsushima, in the shade of Mount Yōtei, the ghost is reborn. Finally, after a long wait, Sucker Punch Productions unveiled Ghost of Yotei, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, and in a stunning turn of events, it is a completely separate adventure taking place some 329 years after the first Mongol invasion. The teaser doesn't show a lot, but there is much to explore. The new location, time frame, the new ghost Atsu, how big the role of Jim Sakai and his legacy will play in the sequel, and maybe whether the wolf is the spirit of Jim Sakai. This is an actual thing I'm going to be talking about in this video. But before we delve into the trailer itself, it is important to establish the historical context for Ghost of Yotei, as it helps a lot with understanding what this whole game could possibly be about. Plus, it's quite interesting, I promise. Let's start with the location. Mount Yotei is a real mountain on the northernmost island of Japan, Hokkaido, or as it was called back then, Ezo. So it's pretty much on the completely opposite end of the country from Tsushima. The most interesting thing about Ezo is that its native people are not Japanese. Instead, it's home to Ainu people who also live on the surrounding Sakhalin and Kuril islands in modern Russia. The Ainu were generally hunters and gatherers with deep spiritual practices. In Japanese, the word Ezo means the land of the barbarians, which should tell you everything about the relationship between the Ainu and the Japanese. At the time of Ghost of Yotei, as the Ronin in the trailer proclaims, Ezo is not really part of Japan, with the shogunate only having control of its south.
We are beyond the edge of Japan.
There is no mention of the Ainu people in the trailer, but I will be extremely surprised if this distinct aspect of Ezo is not at least explored, and at most drives the main conflict in the game. Let's talk about Ghost of Yotei's time period. 1603 is an extremely important year in the history of Japan because it is the year the new Edo shogunate and period began. After a long and tenuous civil war and clan disputes, peace was established and Japan was finally unified. If that sounds familiar, that's because the book Shogun and the recent show Shogun based on the book Shogun are based on this event. This signifies that Ghost of Yotei takes place in a time of change, political and civil uncertainty. As I mentioned before, Ezo was in a very unique position as it was not completely under Japanese control, and local Japanese presence was only properly established 13 years prior to the game's setting. The local feudal lords, also called daimyo, had special privileges because their clan was burdened with the all-important task of containing the so-called native barbarians. They were relatively independent from the shoguns thanks to their faraway location, establishing their own rules in the region. It appears that the Yotei region is quite lawless, kind of like a Japanese Wild West frontier, and that the local samurai are working together with bandits, which implies that the local government is quite corrupt. If I was to speculate and predict the large-scale conflict in the game, one akin to the general Mongol invasion of Tsushima, all things point to Ghost of Yotei being about the local daimyo and his samurai attempting to push further north to take over the Ainu lands in the name of the Japanese unification, supported by the new Edo shogunate. But statistically speaking, I'm probably very wrong. Let's shift our focus to the new ghost, Atsu. The game's creative directors called Ghost of Yotei a tale of underdog vengeance. The cover art shows Atsu seemingly grieving over someone surrounded by their katanas. It is safe to assume that the local clan is responsible, pitting Atsu against the samurai, which in turn prompts the daimyo to outlaw the ghost, making Atsu the target of all the ronin in the land. And of course, much like Jin, it's very likely that her personal vendetta will integrate into the larger plot of stopping the Japanese expansion into Ainu territory. Unlike Jin, Atsu is not samurai or nobility, but much more likely a ronin slash thief slash peasant of some sort, also indicated by her unorthodox fighting style. There is a lot to uncover in Atsu's design. Yellow is her primary outfit color, and the red of Jin's Japanese maple is replaced with the yellow of the ginkgo tree, which is also the symbol of the game. I'm assuming that this color is representing Atsu's sorrow and grief. The ribbon Atsu holds in the cover art seems to be significant because, well, it's on the cover art, so of course it's significant. I don't read Japanese, unfortunately, so I don't know what the ribbon says. Please help. It could possibly contain the names of those Atsu is trying to avenge, or some kind of promise. Again, I don't know. We also see it prominently in this shot, and also her blood wipe as she performs the classic katana cleaning animation, which I highly hope will return in the game. But most interesting of all, of course, is the new ghost mask. Namely, whether it's an imitation or the ghost mask of Clan Sakai. Personally, right now, I skew towards the former. Some elements like the teeth and robe are practically identical, and the weathering on the edges could signify the age. However, other details like the nose and the color obviously look quite different, and overall, the mask looks much simpler and smoother than the more detailed and ribbed Sakai mask. It's also interesting to note that this mask was once broken and then reassembled using the kintsugi restoration technique. Thematically, this detail could mean several things. For Atsu, it could mean a broken life that was rebuilt in the name of vengeance. For the symbolism of the ghost, it could mean that the legend faded but was restored for a new fight in a new age. Okay, so this wolf, this is an absolutely insane theory, but it could be that the wolf is a spirit representation of Jin Sakai. The reason why I'm assuming that at all is the wolf's reaction to the guiding wind. He is aggressive with Atsu until the wind blows, and all of a sudden he's all chill and even happy, running off in the wind's direction. Plus, the wolf's face outline kind of looks like a ghost mask, and his teeth are like ghost teeth. No, I'm crazy. Yeah, fair enough. Even if the wolf is not Jin, he clearly represents someone, possibly Atsu herself. The first shot of the animal coincides with this line.
But you are hunting.
The wolf is hunting, Atsu is hunting, you get it. But the role of animals in these games was always more significant than that. The animals were guides for Jin, and the foxes, messengers of the kami gods, led him to the Inari shrines. The wolf seems to be an expanded idea of that. It might be a coincidence, but wolves also happen to be kami messengers. We don't know how big the wolf's role will be, or what function it will serve. It could be something ranging from guiding Atsu in the open world to assisting in combat, or maybe the wolf has purely narrative or metaphorical relevance. Atsu is a lone wolf on a hunt, the wolf follows the guiding wind, and so should Atsu, or something like that. But I just thought it'd be interesting if the wolf represents Jin, the OG ghost who is guiding the new ghosts to her purpose. But that's just wishful thinking on my part, because Jin is my guy and I'll miss him. I touched upon this briefly, but the return of the guiding wind is significant, if not obvious. In Ghost of Tsushima, the wind represented the spirit of Jin's father Kazumasa, guiding him from beyond the grave. Which begs the question, what does Atsu's guiding wind represent? Is it the spirit of the ones she lost? Or is it the spirit of Kazumasa Sakai, courtesy of Jin Sakai, who is represented by the wolf? What gives one guiding wind privileges? Is it only available to those with the ghost mantle? I'm joking, obviously, and both the wind and the wolf probably represent something about Atsu we don't know about yet, but it's interesting to think about. The guiding wind lore is getting complicated, quite frankly. Continuing the conversation about the connection between Jin and Atsu, why the ghost? Why is Atsu specifically the ghost and not some other vengeful, masked, wandering lone warrior like the spirit of Yarikawa, for example? Well, branding, mainly, but thematically, even with such little information available, I might have an answer. To get the obvious out of the way, I don't think Atsu is a descendant of Jin's. I believe the point Sucker Punch are trying to make is that the ghost's legend can live through anyone in any era. However, Atsu could be very much inspired by Jin's legacy and legend. The Mongol invasions were the last time anyone tried to invade Japan until World War II, so such a heroic event and victory would no doubt still be in the people's minds. And that especially includes the legend of the demonic vengeful samurai spirit who liberated Tsushima and Iki all on his own and defeated the Khan. Such an important symbol would no doubt be an asset to Atsu, but even more than that, I can already see connecting themes between Jin and Atsu that make up the point of the ghost, so to speak. One thing that defines the ghost is the opposition to the samurai and the shogunate. For Jin, as a samurai himself, it was ideological opposition, challenging the shogun's code of honor, while Atsu's opposition looks to be much more physical and literal, but the point is, the ghost challenges the established rule and the shogun's shortcomings. Second, the ghost protects the innocents and defends the common people. In Ghost of Tsushima, the samurai are too preoccupied with defeating the Han, while Jin is the one who liberates villages and clears out Mongol outposts. We don't know to what extent Atsu's righteousness goes, but we can already see her fighting some bandits, so that's a start. Another thing that defines the ghost, in my opinion, is their incredible ability to inspire and unify. The original ghost was able to rally Yarikawa and the raiders of Iki against the Mongols, and inspire people like Kenji and Taka to fight, even to a fault. And this is where the Ainu people come in. This time around, the samurai are the invaders, so the ghost could rise once again in Atsu to fight the corrupt clan, protect those who can't protect themselves, and inspire the indigenous people to rise up against oppression. That is what I believe Sucker Punch's intent is with continuing the legend of the ghost through different people in different ages. Here are some miscellaneous details I noticed in random shots. The grainy black and white film look of the trailer's opening shots are yet another homage to the legendary filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, and Ghost of Tsushima's Kurosawa mode that I highly suspect will make a return. In this shot, a samurai warrior is activating the Way of the Flame. Again, quite ironically, this was a technique used by the Mongols and the Ghost, who were both enemies of the samurai. Makes me wonder what other Mongol and ghost tactics the samurai have embraced since the invasions. A couple of things here. Wild horses, obviously that's cool, very beautiful, but also we can see a flock of golden birds in the sky, a clear nod to the bird mechanic in Ghost of Tsushima. That also implies that this particular method of leading the player to a point of interest won't return in the game. Also, there's the return of the smokestack in the distance that highlights a point of interest. There's also a couple of them in this shot. Since we're here now, this castle actually exists. The Matsumaya Castle is the only one on the island and belonged to the clan in control of the region, or their fictional counterpart in this instance. Sucker Punch doesn't really use historical locations for their landmarks, but if this castle's placement in the game is accurate, it will be located at the very southern point of the island, which means that at least this whole area will be explorable. If I'm not mistaken, we can see some construction going on at the castle, and that is because historically, it wasn't complete until 3 years later in 1606, which is honestly an insane detail to put in here. It looks like Atsu will bring the fight to the castle at one point, since we can see the local samurai clan's banners on the side. This shot continues the continued tradition of making the horse cute and our best friend, but the good news is this horse will likely stay alive throughout the whole journey, because the idea of killing a horse for dramatic effect is a one-trick pony. The last shot before the title drop focuses on this peculiar location. A lone broken down house at the edge of a cliff with a single tree, with a constant flow of yellow leaves blowing away. Needless to say, this looks like a significant and iconic location in the game, especially since this is where the guiding wind and the wolf are leading Atsu. The leaves on Tsushima's cover refer to this specific Japanese maple at the Sakai Cemetery, where some significant stuff happened, so the leaves on this cover could signify this particular ginkgo tree by the house, possibly Atsu's home or the place whoever she's avenging was killed, or I don't know. Am I really talking about the thematic relevance of trees and leaves right now? Is this really the best use of our time? Don't you think it'd be better if I ended the video here and you watched the God of War video, because I made a bunch of those and have 0 other ghost videos, but I'll make some, okay? You do? You agree? Agreed.